Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. Good morning. It's Thursday morning. It's 9:27 here. About to do this one, then take the dog out. So I just wanted to get a quick update to you on all things Tottenham Hotspur. Similar sorts of stories, but a few updates this morning. One from Graham Bailey regarding Mohamed Kudus. One from Arsenal regarding Eze and maybe Rodrigo. And I think we have to kind of get a little bit weird with our thought processes if we really want to see both of those players together. We'll be talking about that in just a moment. Christian Romero also allegedly having a conversation with Daniel Levy, according to reports out in Sports Mole this morning, saying, from the boot room as well, saying a certain vibe regarding a new monster contract that would make him the club's new highest earner. And maybe like a suggestion or two from a couple of the other aggregators around where Tottenham should go if they do, in fact, choose to sell Christian Romero. Before we get into it, guys, smash the like button, smash the granny out of it like you always do. Like you always do. And I'm so appreciative for it. Thank you so much. It really does help the channel find new Tottenham fans. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop the comments. Let me know your thoughts on today's brief early morning update. So the first one for you guys is from Graham Bailey. Let me just get it up on the screen so I can show you what it is that I am referring to. He's come out an hour ago with Jamie B. Coys, who I think is the Tottenham Hotspur specific correspondent over at the boot room. He's saying Tottenham Hotspur are continuing talks over Mohamed Kudus. TBR Football understands they have now had 2 bids rejected by West Ham. The latest offer is worth up to £55 million. It's still some way off of West Ham's asking price. And that's coming from Jamie B at the boot room as well. It's an interesting one. It's a £55 million, probably including some add-ons. So if that's the second attempt, 50 million plus 5, you have to just immediately kind of question like the process here. Remember, I don't know if you guys saw Sammy Mockbell on Last Word on Spurs last night. I saw some clips of him saying that essentially, yes, Tottenham are interested in Mohamed Kudus, but according to him, 5 other teams, 6 teams in total, are very much interested. Now, one of those we know is Chelsea. We think that Liverpool might be another one, and we think that Newcastle United might be a fourth. Not sure about who the other couple are, possibly someone overseas in Europe. And look, of course, I think it's worth pointing out here, guys, that just because you're doing the early running, just because you're putting in all the work and doing all the negotiations, other clubs will be saying to West Ham, hey, do us a favor, keep us informed, let us know the price points. And obviously, as this news leaks, these information sound bites leak around Tottenham having bids rejected. I did see a tweet the other day that was from a West Ham fan that said, from what I hear, Tottenham Hotspur are putting in all of the work. They are front-running everything. They're putting in 2 or 3 bids to come, although I still expect in about 20 days' time that Tottenham, having done all of the work, that Chelsea will come in and pay 70 to 75 million quid and take our boy. And it kind of does make you have squeaky bum time around that sort of thing. Like, it's one thing to be saying to Daniel Levy, get your act together, get some work done. It's been a slow, unnecessarily poor start to the window. And obviously the Eze thing we're going to come to in a second. But with regards Kudus and stuff, we just started, we're 2 days into the new financial year. Some teams obviously have got a different approach to negotiations. I've said this 1,000 times. I think Daniel Levy's biggest faux pas in his footballing character, his makeup, if you like, is his, what appears to be at least, a zero-sum game to negotiation where he can't just find value. He can't ever seemingly wants to shake hands on a deal where there's mutual beneficiaries, right? Where people can shake hands and go, I enjoyed that. You've got value. We've got value. We need the player. You need the money. Everyone's happy. We'll pick up the phone and do deals again. That seems to not be the case for players like Todd Bowley, or owners like Todd Bowley, who just seem to be able to just pick a player, get one done. Now, the other variable, of course, here is, do we know exactly what's going on with regards to Tottenham's transfers? Just because there's nothing in the news doesn't mean that there's nothing really going on outside of that Mohamed Kudus deal. We know that Johan Lang likes to keep things very close to his chest. Most of the time in Johan Lang's tenure at Tottenham, which has been very frustrating for a content creator, not a lot to get your teeth stuck into, whereas compare that to under the days where Paratici was front and center and a full-time employee of the club before his legal issues sort of came into play. Every day there was, 5 or 6 different transfer links, new ones. They were in the air, plates being spun. They were then getting shared, aggregated, spoken about by various actual, respectable, credible journalists, etc. And so there was a never-ending stream of things to talk about. even in the outside of the transfer window. Like February the 1st came around, there were still new links. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Not so much under Johan Lang when he's in charge of the sort of discourse of information that's coming out of the football club. Also, obviously, bearing in mind that whatever that kind of mole issue was under Ange Postecoglou with leaked information, there's probably more of that being looked at, not just in the regards to team news and regards fitness of players, but also in regards any of those stories. Obviously, the club don't like this information getting out. Rather selfishly, I have to say. You know, I like the news coming out. So Daniel, loosen up the purse strings and loosen up the gossip columns. Okay, we like to talk a few things, because the absence of hearing those stories, whether they're true or not, like there's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, if stories are being spoken about that aren't true, then Tottenham fans will lean into that stuff and go, well, look, he ended up going to Palace, or he ended up going to Arsenal, or he ended up going to wherever. Tottenham were in, but once again didn't do anything. Therefore, ergo, vis-a-vis, ipso facto, Daniel Levy's a bozo. And of course, that's not true necessarily. It might be true for different reasons, depending on how you feel. I don't think that way, but some people do. But he, isn't responsible necessarily for the information that's being shared around there. And if you align a rumor with fact, then obviously you're going to end up being disappointed a lot of the time. At the same time, the absence of any transfer news, views, and clues is also a catalyst for people to get unhappy. Like, I feel like there should be a happy balance. I feel like that the PR team needs to be kind of, I don't know, contemplative of the energy that surrounds the football club from the fans, that does manifest into things like Change for Tottenham marches, that does have its impact in real time with regards to the energy in the football club, the energy in the stadium. If they can't directly control it, they can influence it. They need to be more aware of, I'm not just talking about transfers, by the way, I'm talking about in anything around the football club. They need to be aware that rumors and opaque information that can be created by anybody, can be shared by anybody, can be manipulated, spun, and distributed by absolutely anybody, that those things are both a hindrance, like an anchor, and also a potential catalyst and amplifier of good energy. Like, you don't need to ignore it. You don't need to stop it. You don't need to allow it to get out of control. But if the club were to be a little bit more contemplative of the results of and the impact that rumors have, then use it. Be a little bit smarter with how you use it. I'm sure other clubs do as well. Anyway, the story is that Kudus is at £55 million, and that's the bid, the second bid rejected. Now, as I say, if there's 5 other clubs knocking around, you just wonder if 1 or 2 of those are just sitting there waiting for, there to be an official bid that is accepted. And then as soon as that final information is made available and known by West Ham, yes, we've accepted the bid from Tottenham, then all it takes is a phone call to a team and a manager and an owner, rather, that you already have a better relationship with, to go, oh yeah, Tottenham just bid this, we've accepted it. Okay, you can come in as well now. And unfortunately, if you have a situation whereby there is 5 or 6 different clubs that are all doing the same thing, and Tottenham have a history of making negotiations difficult, because Daniel Levy zero-sum going to negotiation, by the time you get to the point where there's a bid that's been accepted, there might be a little bit of Levy fatigue going on in the minds and the hearts and minds of the people on the receiving end of it, and they'd be more than happy, after going through the battle that is a transfer negotiation, to pick up the phone and say, listen, this is a price if you want to come in last minute. And so you have to be careful of that as well. Let's hope it's not going to be the case. Mohamed Kudus, for me, as a right winger, I'd love to see it as a 9, a false 9, an 8, as a 10. He can play a little bit everywhere. Careful though, because obviously there's rumors, not sure if they're true, rumors that he got a little bit unhappy with his overutilization in areas that didn't suit his game, wasn't able to get any rhythm and momentum. But as a player, I think he suits us to an absolute T. As a useful mechanism, I think he's the best signing we've made for a long time, and I'd be really excited to see him in the team. What I would say, guys, is that I don't necessarily think that he solves all of our frontline problems. I still think we need to go again, especially if we do sell signing, which I'm kind of, again, don't take this the wrong way, but for me, I think it's the best for all parties for him to move on at this time. Don't see the point in him starting a new project at Tottenham. I don't want to see the amplification of his decline. I don't want to see people remember him differently than how they should right now, which is an absolute legend who captained in his last professional competitive game for the football club, the team that he spent 10 years trying to get a trophy for, and he did it as captain in the Europa League final. Perfect way to sunset the story. Would love to see a happy ending now, with everyone being rightfully appreciated and recognized, acknowledged for their contributions. But at the end of the day, move on, bring some money in. But because that can't happen in all likelihood until after the first away game in the preseason tour in Korea, then I would imagine that you're not going to be able to get a second forward in until that's done. If we're thinking that you have to sell before you can buy a little bit with the second guy. What I would say, guys, just on this one quickly, is obviously all the noises around Eze going to Arsenal, which would, for some reason, be absolutely devastating for Tottenham fans, because apparently everyone thinks of him as a Tottenham boy. Apparently, even though he was an Arsenal youth team player, he's never played for Tottenham. He just happens to have the same agency. He's been welcomed into the agency's box or whatever, as I'm sure other players are as well. I'm sure they have been, but we just seem to think that there's a closer correlation with the Eze story. And so the idea of him going to Arsenal is like heartbreak, a knife through our hearts. I don't really understand it, but I tell you what, I've said it for a long time, it's probably more likely than not that he'll end up at Arsenal. However, what I would say is I think we might have to be a little bit long-sighted here and maybe wish for an outcome where Arsenal get a better player that helps Arsenal more, so that we can get a player like Eze that helps us more in our own personal growth, our own version of where we're at to where we want to be. It almost sounds a little bit backward, but I would suggest that maybe we should be urging that Arsenal can sign Rodrigo to play off the left-hand side, even though I think Rodrigo is a better player, a better fit for what a typical winger type of role is used for in an Arsenal system, and would probably help them more than what Eze would. But we're not going to sign Rodrigo. And if Rodrigo goes somewhere else, then Arsenal will sign Eze. I believe we will have a really good chance of getting Eze later in the window if we've sold Sonny, if Arsenal sign Rodrigo. So as much as I hate the idea of Arsenal signing one of the best left wingers in the world, I think there might be an argument here to say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And that Tottenham should be rooting for Rodrigo to join Arsenal so that Tottenham can sign Eze, as long as the money makes sense and as long as everyone's on board it. Let me know your thoughts on that one, guys. Moving forward, just quickly on to Christian Romero. So the story here is from the TBR again. The boot room, a lot of action out today. They're saying that Christian Romero doesn't want to sign a new contract. Essentially, Jamie Brown has said that Christian Romero's name is likely to dominate the headlines at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this transfer window. In fact, let me bring it up on the screen so you know that I'm not making it up. Romero is strongly linked to Atletico Madrid, who are desperate to make the Argentine their marquee signing this summer. However, Frank wants to keep Romero in North London, and the Lily Whites are also pulling out all the stops to make it happen. Daniel Levy has offered Romero a huge contract that would make him Tottenham's highest paid player. And the 27-year-old has now made his feelings clear about the deal. He doesn't want to sign a new contract. That his desire is to leave. It's not about money, but it's about wanting to take the next step in his career. TBR Football revealed that last month that Spurs were ready to make him a significant contract. However, Romero's heart was set on the move to Atletico Madrid. According to Fernando CZYZ, Romero is believed to have told Levy, quote, "It's not a matter of money, but of professional challenges. I love Tottenham and it will always be in my heart." Levy is now reluctantly accepted he might have to sell the World Cup winner this summer, although Atletico are yet to make an acceptable offer. They are willing to offer around £55 million for the defender, but Levy is holding out for around £70 million. The story goes on. I'll come back to that in a second, because he talks about Castello Luqueba being a great replacement. That first and foremost, Castello Luqueba, for me, is a left-sided centre-back with a left foot balance. So, cracking player. I remember when Tottenham were looking at him a couple of years ago, and I remember doing a deep dive into the Y Scout tool, and he ended up leaving Lyon and going to RB Leipzig, I think it was. A really great player. I don't think he's necessarily kicked on quite as much as I thought he would have done when he left Lyon. I thought that he was so outstanding as a left-footed, left-sided defender. This was under the Conte model. I think it was under Conte we were still looking at trying to get that left-footed, left-sided centre-back. And look, we still need one of those to come in to be a sort of deputy behind Micky van der Ven, so that if Micky van der Ven goes down with bad injuries like he seems to do 50% of the time, then you need someone else to come in and be able to not have that massive drop off in levels. If you do that, if you do go and bring a Lukaber in to play that role, then I don't think you necessarily need to keep Ben Davies around. I'm fine with Ben Davies being here, but obviously on some sort of rotation to a back three model. If you go and spend the Romero money or most of it on a player that's a left-sided, left-footed player that is coming in either to play on the left of a three or the middle of a three, if he happens to be two-footed, that leans left, like a Lukaber could do, that's fine, but then you don't need Ben Davies, in my opinion, and you can make a little bit more room in the squad that way. And if Tottenham are going to be selling Romero and not replacing as a right side, then who do we have? We have Kevin Danso, Radu Dragusin, and Kota Takai that can play in that role. Look, I don't think necessarily any of them are world class to the same degree that Christian Romero is as a player, but they all have different skill sets, and I think would all be a better fit than they were in an Ange Postecoglou system, in a Thomas Frank system, because none of that. I mean, Kevin Danso's a monster in the air. I think Dragusin will be a major beneficiary, massive beneficiary of having 10 yards less to worry about behind him, given his lack of pace. I think other players like Vuskovic as well. I don't know if they're going to be ready. We'll see in pre-season, but those sorts of caliber players that are big, strong, tough tackling, great in the air, offer so much of the traditional centre-back model. If they're asked to play on the halfway line, it's terrifying, especially when you haven't got a six in front of you that can mop things up. So I think we shouldn't be too quick to have judged Radu Dragusin, because it's a horses for courses thing and a very nuanced circumstance that hopefully we'll get to see a very different, much better, much more improved version once he comes back from his injury layoff. In terms of Castello Lukaber, though, do really like him. And I honestly don't mind. What I would say is, I think that the sixth position, the midfield pivot situation is so important to us. I'd love to get a Polinia coming in for the times when you do play with like a single pivot and you want to advance the second midfielder. I'd love to have someone like a Douglas Luiz in as well. And if you could go and, sell Bissouma, maybe sell or think about selling or sort of making some wiggle room with a guys like a Pape Sarr, even though I actually am curious to know what Pape Sarr is going to be like in a Thomas Frank model. I think that Pape Sarr is like such a rough diamond. He's got such unique value, such unbelievable nuanced skill sets that very few people in the Premier League have got. And when you have that, you just need to nurture it and get the best out of him. And I think the coaching staff that we put together with Thomas Frank and the guys behind him are going to probably look at someone like him and think we've got a real great option there, a fantastic option for late in games or to be a starter. And I think that if you give him the confidence and you get some absolute form out of him and consistency, you just got to get that passing and that distribution, that kind of final decision a little bit better, and you might have a cracking player. But either way, Tottenham's midfield needs to be the next priority. As I say, if we can sign Eze, then get it done quick, find out what the number is, because I think that the longer this goes on where Tottenham do all of the donkey work, they're like the horse or the guy at the front of the peloton in a cycling race that's taking all the wind, and he's leading the charge for 95% of the race. And then it comes to the sprint finish, and then someone that's been sitting in the wind block behind him can just pull out and fly past in the slipstream. And that to me is a concern when you have Chelsea and Liverpool lurking, but not putting any real effort in yet. You wonder why. Are they busy doing other things, or are they just waiting for Tottenham to do all of the legwork just for Chelsea to get a phone call from West Ham and they say, yeah, this is the deal. Do you want to come in and gazump us or gazump Tottenham straight away? And Chelsea and Todd Bowley are an owner that don't mess around. It's interesting that Sammy Mockbell also mentioned that there's a Tottenham tax in the Premier League. That just the negotiation, as I said earlier, like the battle that is a negotiation with Daniel Levy is so unenjoyable that he's suggesting, although there's nothing to confirm it, that maybe teams say, you're a pain, mate. You're a pain. A couple million, I'll deal with you, but only for 2 million extra. And again, if any of those things are true, I'm not sure if they are, but if they are true, then it does go to show, doesn't it, that Daniel Levy, I don't think he can change the way he is. I think that's his style of negotiation. That's what he loves. And I've met lots of people in life that sort of handle their negotiation style that way. I don't always think it's a horrible thing. It depends on the environment. But if you are trying to work with only a relative few number of potential vendors, then being a little bit more convivial and leaving some for the next guy surely is a better way to operate a long-term vision. But who am I to argue with him? He's created a multi-billion-pound empire from a relatively small investment. But yeah, that's the stories, guys. Casella Lukeba, Graham Bailey saying that £55 million, still some way off West Ham's asking price. Be interesting to know how you feel about this. Would you be okay selling? Would you be okay with Arsenal getting Rodrigo if it meant that we got Eze? Should we be rooting for that? Because I actually think that Rodrigo is a better fit for Arsenal. He's actually probably a better fit for Tottenham as well, but I can't imagine Rodrigo would come to Tottenham, not at this stage. But if it meant that we could get Eze and Kudus, and then you have some absolute amazing options in that forward line to work with, and things can look a lot rosier. Then you just got to go and get that 6 and the 8 the midfield battle sort of sewn up, and then figure out whatever's happening with Romero and make the right decision regarding that. And Tottenham can seriously improve. I still think the gap between first and fourth is basically, or 1, 2, and 3 is going to expand versus 4. 4 in Chelsea, I think that at the moment that they are, they're doing a lot of trading, but I'm not sure if they're improving that much. I think they're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul. It just feels like a little bit like they're selling one player that's a very good player, buying another one that's a very good player. They just seem to get bored like the kid with the shiny toy. And be interesting to see how much they've spent versus their improvement. I'm not sure it's that difficult to quantify it, but we'll see at the end of the window. And after that, then it becomes down to who can get the 5th spot. Will it be Tottenham? Will it be United? Will it be Villa? Will it be Newcastle? Will it be somebody else that comes up with an outperformance? One spot to play for in my mind next year, 5th place. Everything. I think that fourth is closer to us than Chelsea are closer to the next pack below than they are to the 3 above. I think the 3 above are head and shoulders above everybody else by a country mile. But we've got 4th and 5th to fight for. In order to do that, we need to improve our team and not do all the work just to let the team that's in 4th steal our boy at the last minute. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. I'll be back later on. Bye.